Okay, everybody, we're going to be getting ready to start here momentarily. Meadow's going to be painting. She's setting up her still life. So, I think it's ready to go on it.
Okay, I'm done.
Yeah. How you doing, Mike? Okay. So, hello, everybody. We're going to be starting here momentarily. We are setting up still life. Meadow is. And Meadow's going to be painting tonight. She's been with us for a long time. You know, probably been here, I don't know, 15 years?
Going on 15.
So, the main thing, it's going to be a really great, as usual, a really fun thing. It's going to be a little loud because we're doing our Friday night workshop, drawing workshop across from it, but it'll get quieter as we get started. Just, yeah, give us a few minutes and we will be ready to go. So, stay patient.
So arm back, sitting. So I'm trying to come up with
Are you not tense?
Oh, you're all nice, loosened up, relaxed.
Somewhat.
Got a little knot right here.
You know, that left shoulder always.
I know, I have a lot of problems. Well, now I have tons of problems with it. I got knots everywhere.
Yeah, you have like a big bone spur on that thing.
It's pretty funny. Okay, let's see. So, okay, if I'm in here like this, is this going to be okay?
That's fine.
Okay.
Zoom in a little bit.
Let's see. Let's zoom in on this. Oh, it's right here. You can go ahead and if you want, but I think that's probably pretty. And so, do you want these on or no? Probably not.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I'm gonna use this.
Okay. So, all these things, you know, pretty easy. Pretty easy. No, I'm going to take off right now. So I'm going to get a quick bite. Yeah, okay, I'll let you take.
hey, what's up? How are you?
I know. Yeah. Hey, Jeff, can you open up that back door?
Well, I don't have a key for it.
Me neither.
Do you have a key for that door?
I think so.
Sure, you get it.
Unless you change it.
No, I don't think you can.
Hey, how are you? Huh? I don't care. I mean, I'm just doing sitting there. Hi, Jim. How are you?
What's happening?
How much? Oh, this store is the one I took already over. There you go. I don't know. The goofy name.
What are you doing? Oh, you're going to watch this? Are you going to monitor?
No, I'm just
I don't care. I mean, it's not like it's new to me to be watched. So I'm okay with that.
A couple of years.
Alright. So is it going yet?
Oh, we're going.
Oh, okay. So the computer's staring at that?
Yeah.
Okay. That's plenty boring.
Let them know.
Feels like this canvas
going?
Is it going?
I think so. We're good.
Live. Can they hear our sappy music in the background?
What's that?
Can they hear the sappy music?
Oh yeah. You can narrate all you want here. Shannon Webster wants to know what you're sketching with.
I'm using one of these Draftmatic pencils, it's called. So you can get these at pretty much any art supply place, and they come in different leads. But for more technical paintings, I prefer to sketch in with a mechanical pencil versus doing it with a paintbrush. I find that it's just a little bit less intimidating to make mistakes when it's a finer line.
Jan Stevenson wants to know if we'd be able to see the still life setup in one of the breaks, maybe.
Sure. That's up to the camera, I guess. Yeah, that probably would help to see that.
We're searching if we can get a shot of it right now.
There you go.
Pat Reed wants to know what kind of canvas you're using.
This is one I didn't do a very good job of stretching, but it is a, it's Frederick's Kent. This is my favorite go-to all around canvas because it has a tooth, but it's pretty fine. So I used to use the Carlton, but I found it was a little too toothy. And the Rix is really nice, but it's a little maybe smooth for still life, and I like to have a little more texture in still life. And how long before somebody wants to see my palette?
That won't be very long. So here's a question about the online school, but I think it kind of crosses over to the Atelier too, so I think you have good insight into it. Andrew H. wants to know that he said in other streams we mentioned that it's good to learn multiple disciplines. When doing courses, specifically the online courses, he's asking, should he stick with drawing for a good long while before painting?
If you can, I think you should try to draw as much as you can before going over into painting. But there gets to be a certain point when you're just itching so bad to try out your drawing skills in a painting. Because I think that translates, you can really see how well you draw through painting because you're constantly losing it and finding it, losing it and finding it. And getting that, just that consistency with painting, to me is a great sign of a draftsman. But I would speak on my own experience that I do wish I would have spent more time drawing before jumping into painting, but you kind of have to consider your personality. If you are motivated, if that's what you really want to do is paint and that's what gets you going, it's never a problem to start painting early, but make sure that the majority of your classes are in the drawing. So if you take, if you're spending time taking 4 or 5 classes, you could have one that's painting, but spend most of your quality hours in the drawing. I think that's probably a better plan than just jumping into painting right away because it's very hard to learn how to draw and paint. You can do it, but it just doesn't translate as well. And someone like myself, I would love to go back and just spend 2 straight years just drawing. There's just something that you don't get. Once you start getting into painting, it's very hard to go back and spend that time drawing with the fresh eye that you have when you're a new student. That's a good thing about online is that you can always go back and revisit things. So if you feel like you didn't understand perspective, you can go back in and do it over and over again. I think that's kind of a weird sort of misnomer about being an artist is that once you learn it, that's it. You're skilled for life, and it's just not true. We all have to constantly keep our eye in check and in tune. And, I don't really get to work from life very often, so when I do, it's kind of a rough transition. Whereas when I was a student, I worked from life primarily, and when I got in the studio, I had no idea what to do, and it was very difficult. So you have to always be juggling a few things at once, and just be aware of where you feel you're progressing and where you feel you're lacking, and go back and revisit those things.
Andrew H. says, seems like you pulled these items off the shelf at an antique store.
I have been a long time collector of antiques, and they are all very old pieces. You know, some are vintage, some are antiques. The teddy bear is more towards the antique. It's a mohair bear. But for me, still life painting is all about being really interested in the subject. You know, when you go into a model class, you don't always get to pick who you're going to paint and draw that day. But when it comes to still life, I mean, you're kind of in charge. So I would recommend not painting things that don't interest you. I mean, that just sounds logical, but I've sat down to paint something before thinking, oh, this is fine, you know. Halfway through, I'm like, I hate painting this thing. So for me, I have to be drawn to the object before I want to commit that kind of time. Because it's like you have a little relationship with it, and you want to really fall in love with it. And I spend a lot of time thinking about themes, things that go together, versus things that don't feel like they fit in together. And I think antique toys are one of the easiest things to find in terms of, you know, being able to get stuff for the average collector, and they tend to resonate with most people, and they have a good variety of textures and patinas and colors. You know, I like all kinds of subject matter. As a matter of fact, I saw a really nice classic still life last week with the old you know, dead animals and the kitchen scenes, and I love that kind of subject matter, but I'm not really willing to go out and kill pheasants to paint that. So I like to paint, you know, nostalgic things, but I want to also be able to pack it away when I'm done and be able to reuse it. With a small investment, you can get a really nice arsenal of items to paint that you enjoy. You don't need very many things. I usually recommend having, you know, a couple nice pieces of metalware like copper and some silver, maybe some brass, and you know, like a basket, old vintage basket you could put fruits and vegetables in, and a couple simple vases, and then you can work primarily with fruits and vegetables and flowers. And it's a very inexpensive way to paint, to learn how to paint from life, and to subject yourself to a wide variety of subject matter. When I first started this school, I think still life class was sort of looked at as just one of those like old lady disciplines, and it took a long time for people to understand that if they want to paint a guy in a battle scene with a full suit of armor, that they need to do some still life painting to understand how metal reflects and how to get certain patinas and textures. like even this bear, I mean, that's got a fuzzy texture. You might find that you have to do a painting of some creature that has a type of fur, and so you want to have that experience under your belt, and you can set up any kind of scenario. You could say, I have to paint a creature with orange skin, so maybe you do a study of oranges and how they look under different lights, just so you can understand how the colors work. It's a very, very useful subject matter or discipline, and most people in the process start to really kind of fall in love with it. They start to enjoy it because they can always find something that they are drawn to set up in a scene.
So we've got two questions that are kind of similar here. Marlene Lee and Shannon Webster both are asking about your color application. Marlene Lee is asking, she was wondering if you can explain why you're using certain colors and where you start with them. And Shannon Webster is asking, how do you decide which color to start applying first?
Right now I'm thinking mainly of kind of going into my dark areas. So I tend, on a still life, I tend to go a little more colorful, and I try to go really rich in the beginning. I don't want to get anywhere in these pasty areas in the initial part of the painting, because that always kills me. I want to make sure I am thinking more about richness, which to me is better indicator of something that has an antique patina. I don't want anything to look too new. So I want to have good contrast, but I also want to have some richness of color. There are bright colors up there, and I want to somewhat preserve them. You know, but if I look at that flag, the red stripes, most of it are in shadow, so I'm not going to go in with just a pure red pigment at this point. I'm not overly concerned about that. Whereas I am a little concerned that the bear, whose body is kind of a golden shade, it could easily get dingied up before I want it to. So I'll build towards that. So I tend to start with my darks first. And really, you can start any way you want, but in general, I've found it's easier to start with your darker passages and work towards your lights. Just over time, it gets lighter and lighter and pastier as you go, so it's kind of nice to probably emphasize warm colors and richer colors first, because things get cold and pasty. And that's usually because you're using your lights. Like this little dark area underneath that train, if I don't go in with that initially in a stain and I start to muck around there, I'm going to have a really hard time getting that to be that dark. So I'm going to start with that earlier than later. I'm also staining. I'm working in stains. So I'm not using any big paint really right now. I like to just get most of the canvas covered. And when I have light areas like this beige cloth and the clothing, I actually go a couple of shades darker at first and build the thicker paint on top. Most people, have heard this rumor that you shouldn't use black, but really it's the white paint that's the one you got to watch out for. I've found that's killed me more than anything. And if you can't get it dark enough, you have to actually let the paint almost dry.
Yeah, it's hard.
Another common thing I see when I teach still life painting is that for some reason people ignore cast shadows. I don't know why. It's a mystery to me. I must have done it too when I was starting out. I think it's just a very common thing. And they help give objects a place to rest. They're not floating into the air. So I'm just going to kind of remind myself where they are in the scene.
We've got the palette question. What colors are you using? Marlene Lee asks.
What colors am I not using is kind of my palette. I have a pretty wide range. I have, your warm and cool primary palette plus about 25 colors. I don't even know how to answer the question. There's just so many paints on here. But if you want to show a picture of my
Can you go into the palette chat? You can kind of go over what you got?
Yeah, I'll just mention it.
All right. All right, there we go.
Okay. This is Horizon Blue from Holbein. This is just your plain old titanium white. This is Ivory White from Holbein. This is called Buff Titanium, and it's basically an unbleached white. This is Gamblin's Radiant Violet. I use a lot of these pastels in place of white for adjusting colors. So if something's too yellow, I might use this purple in place of a white to lighten and to alter the color. This is Monochrome Warm from Holbein. This is Da Vinci Yellow Ochre. This is a Cad Lemon, Cad Deep, Cad Red Medium. This is a Iron Oxide, Indian Red, Permanent Rose, Permanent Magenta, Transparent Maroon, Cad Red Deep, Sap Green, Olive Green. This is Compost Green from Holbein. This is, I don't remember the name of it. It's basically a phthalo and a white. So it's phthalo green with white. This is, let's see, LaFranc Royal Blue. This is Cobalt Blue. This is Gambling Radiant Blue. This is Prussian Blue, which is basically kind of a phthalo. This is Davies Gray, and that's black. So it's a pretty wide palette of stuff out here. In general, I usually have about 20. I used to have about 40 colors in my palette, so I've kind of cut back. Mainly because it's just a pain to keep refilling everything, and do what you need. All these colors, not even. But I would say for still life, if you're a minimalist painter, for still life you might need to open up your palette a little bit more. You might need, to have 6 to 7 colors on your palette if you're a still life painter. And that's mainly because in still life you will find that nature provides you with colors you just are not going to see in a portrait. So it's kind of nice to have that option. Just like if you go plein air painting, you might use color. Like I have a different palette when I go plein air painting. It has ultramarine blue and more blues on it. You're outdoors and the light's different out there. It has more of a blue influence.
We have a question from Kimball Geisler, who asks, do you recommend any cheap painting services that can be used for studies or practicing, something that might not be very archival or good for presentation, but still allows for good edge manipulation?
I can never advocate things that aren't archival, only because you just never know. You might paint something really, really nice, and then it's on a surface that is corruptible. But you can paint on very inexpensive surfaces that are archival. Tempered masonite is probably your least expensive option, and you can just put a couple coats of gesso on there, and you can do you can, for a 4x8 sheet of masonite, it's about, I think, 16 bucks. And you can get so many panels out of that. That is so inexpensive. And it's a pleasure to paint on. And depending on how you apply your gesso, you can vary the surface. So if you want something a little toothier, you could use a sponge roller. If you want something a little slicker, you could use a foam brush. But I always advocate using the best, most archival materials you can, because you're kind of getting your training wheels going, and you don't want to learn on something that is so poor that when you step it up, then you have to relearn how to use something, and that can take a few months to retrain how you work on a surface. So I don't know. I think it's a bit of an insult to students that they have these, student grade paints and these low quality materials that just suck. Like when you paint on a really low quality canvas and it starts to bend halfway through the painting, or the texture of it is like an orange peel, and so the whole time you're having to load tons of paint on there just to remove that texture, because your model's face looks like she's got acne or something, and it's just, to me, it's just not fun, and it totally detracts. But you can really paint inexpensively by using masonite. And then your next option, if you want to step it up from there, is to use masonite that you buy canvas and attach, you'll make your own canvas panels out of it. And I make all my own canvas panels. I actually prefer canvas panels to stretch at this size because, these get kind of loose no matter what. So I like a nice canvas mounted to panel. And you can do, a whole year's worth of paintings for about $100. So it's really pretty economical. But I might be a little bit of an art snob. I always kind of was. I always want to know what kind of paints I was using. I want to know, is it fugitive? Is it going to last? And I have had a painting peel off, and mid-process of painting it, the paint actually came off the surface. And it was just so traumatic that I just never wanted to deal with that again.
Shannon Webster asks, what brush you're using?
Okay, so this is one of my favorite brushes. It's synthetic. It's called Princeton. It's called the Summit 6100 series, and it's their flats. And I buy tons of these. They actually last a pretty long while for a synthetic. But what I like about them is that they hold a pretty good point, and I can scoop the paint up like this, and then I can put it on like a tile, and I find that it just holds a much better edge than bristle type of brushes. I like bristle brushes for pounding on the paint, but I like these for kind of sketching and getting nicer, precise edges. I use a lot of different brushes, but I tend to keep going back to these for lots of things. Like if I'm painting window panes, or if I'm painting a highlight on a piece of metal, or even hair, I find that they're just really good brushes. They're kind of hard to find. I think Dick Blake might carry them. I usually buy all my brushes from Mr. Art. Or from Rosemary's. I order them online. But Mr. Art, they have a membership program. You can pay about $25 a year, and the brushes are very reasonable through that. And they carry a really good range. If you take good care of your brushes and buy good materials, you can really make your budget stretch.
And Marlene Lee wants to know about the canvas paper that comes in pads. Do you recommend that? Or
yeah, that's fine. Yeah, that's actually a good option. I don't know how inexpensive they are. I don't know if they're as cheap as some of the options, but they're nice because you can just tape them to a surface, and if you like your painting, then you can choose to mount it later or stretch it. And if you don't, it's no biggie. And if you're traveling, it's great because you can roll it up, and it takes up a lot less room. So those are great. Again, with anything, you want to maybe shop your brands and see which ones are nicer to paint on. When I first started the school, I went in with another student. We bought a roll of canvas together, and at the time, I thought it was really expensive. I think it was about $100, and it was 6 yards, and it was 84 inches wide. And we took a chop saw and cut it in half. So I had this 40-something wide canvas roll, and it lasted me like 2 years. So I thought, geez, it was such a good investment. You just have to use a little more elbow grease. Not everybody wants to make their own panels. I really do. I like to use copper tacks. I like to do all that. For me, it's the ritual. It gets my mindset ready to start a painting, and I just enjoy that part of the process because I haven't ruined the painting yet, so it's just really nice.
And Pavel Sokol asks,
Hi, Pavel.
He says, hey Meadow, when I use a non-archival canvas panel, does it become archival if I acrylic gesso it really thick? I have oil commissions and can't find linen canvas pads in Montreal.
It depends on your primer, but technically you should be able to use a quality gesso to help make that archival, that barrier. I mean, in the old days, your primer was like a rabbit skin glue, and that was the barrier between the oils or the acids from the linen leaching into the paint. So that was what did it. So I can't say without, with 100% certainty that would work, but it would probably be okay. I really recommend the artist's, I think it's called Artist's Guide to Methods and Artist's Guide to Methods and Materials, and it's like a Bible for artists. It's a really good book, and it will tell you in there exactly what is archival, in terms of how you prepare things, and teaches you about the pigments and paints. And it's just a great book. I think every artist should have that in their library. That's probably one of the first books you should buy. And it has recipes in there if you want to do traditional glazing techniques, and it's just a great resource for people. And that book would have a definitive answer as to what you can do. But I would say most likely that's fine. That's a bummer not being able to get canvas though. But there's archival cotton canvas. It doesn't have to be linen to be archival. It's more in terms of what they use to prime it. I just don't know why they would sell anything that's not archival if it's an art supply. To like the wording and stuff, I probably won't try to paint that wet into wet. I don't know. That could be a dumb plan. So most of the time, I prefer to work paintings in a stages. So I might have one or two pieces on the easel at the same time. I have two going right now at home. For me, I'd rather have the right tackiness to the surface before I jump into certain areas. Some things you need to do wet into wet, and some things you need to do when it's starting to set up a little bit.
Marlene Lee asks, how about reusing canvas panels? Would you recommend it?
No, that's why my painting peeled off. I had a painting on there, and it wasn't even that thick of a painting, and I used like an oil gesso and put on top. And then I started another painting, and about a week later, the painting peeled off, and it was absolutely devastating. I don't know. I think for cost effective, it's probably best to do gessoed masonite and just redo it. Now, what you want to do is have a nice canvas that you do a painting on. Take a picture and immediately scrub it when you're finished painting on it while it's still wet. And then you can reuse it that way several times. You can use it 4 or 5 times at least as long as you get it back down to the canvas. That's a perfectly good way of getting a lot of use out of something and keeping it archival at the same time. But it just means you're going to have to be diligent about scrubbing it right away. I'm just trying to save people the heartache, and also I want people to think, you know, go big, think big to be big. Always be thinking that you are a professional in training and not, oh, I'm just a student. You know, every good artist was a student at some point, and I think it's best to train yourself like you are a professional and take it seriously and invest in yourself. And if finances are the issue, then you might have to just do a little more elbow grease like I did and stretch your own and make your own and be a little bit more resourceful. You know, if you forget your canvas, you have to go buy one. I have to spend $14 on it, whereas I could make one for a few dollars, and I just have to plan ahead. So it's a little more planning, but I think in the long run, you're for the proper lifestyle of an artist. You know, when even your most favorite artist, Morgan Weisling, tells you that he can't afford his own paintings, it kind of tells you that the life of an artist is one. It's not necessarily filled with, you know, millions of dollars. So you kind of have to be smart about how you go about it from the beginning. Think like a professional. That would be my best advice. Be serious about it and treat it like it's a treasure, because it is.
Pavel asks, how long does not archival imply that the painting would peel within a lifetime?
Generally, yeah. I mean, archival, I don't know the technical term of it, because there are probably things that are marked archival now that won't last 100 years, because how do they really test a new product? How can they project ahead 100 years to really see if something is archival? But yeah, generally in your lifetime. Now, Jeff will always say if it's a great painting and it's worth it, they will figure out a way to preserve it, and he's probably right about that. You know, you look at Feshen, and all his work is falling off the canvas, and it's not at all archival, but people are spending the money to restore it and preserve it. But just do the best you can. You know, try to do your research. Like I found, you know, when I would look at my tubes of paint, there's all kinds of little charts and information on here about light fastness and the ingredients that are in the paint. And I went through my tubes and I found that I had, you know, 5 or 10 tubes of paint that were not archival. And so I stopped using those. Even though they were really fun colors, I took them out of my palette. And it was just a simple thing of looking through my paints. I don't want, you know, in 5 years for that pigment to change or alter so badly that the painting has a different character than it started off with.
So we have a question from Renpa Gota. They ask, when I use gouache, I only use Winsor Newton red, blue, yellow, white, and black. Is that bad to limit my colors? Because I prefer to mix them and then I save them.
That's not bad at all. You probably are doing a good job of learning how to really use color by mixing it. I always tell people, don't rush out and buy these pigments. Don't buy a wide range of paint if it's because you don't know how to mix the pigment. If you think, oh, mixing green is really hard, I'll just buy a bunch of greens, that's not really helping yourself. You'll be better off starting with an extremely limited palette like a Zorn palette and learn how to maximize that before you start adding in a bunch of what I would call fun or unnecessary fun colors. Yeah, I think that does a disservice to your ability Most people can mix colors really well if they just sit down and experiment a little bit. So that's why it's good to start off with more limited palettes.
Joe Burgle asks, do you see value in doing gestural fast studies in oil?
Of course, but it has a specific purpose. Do I see the value of doing quick paintings in oil as far as like, for me, as far as a gallery piece? No, it doesn't do me any, it's not something I would ever send to my gallery, a very quick gestural study. But what it does is help get my eye tuned to what's really important, especially when it comes to color notes. If I would consider plein air painting to be a quick gestural study, especially the way the light changes so fast. And if you only have 15-20 minutes to get a sunset captured, then a gestural painting is awesome for that. So it has a specific purpose. I don't want someone to come into class and think, oh, it's all about speed painting, because it's really not, unless you're working such a tight deadline that you need to be cranking out storyboards or something, or concept designs. Then that might be more profitable. But every type of discipline has a purpose. Long studies can help one aspect of your painting, and short studies can help another aspect of painting. And they're all very valuable. One of the things I see commonly in class, because we generally have a 3-hour painting format, is that students tend to think that is what painting is doing a really good painting in 3 hours. And it really isn't, because most fine artists or illustrators, they are not doing a 3-hour painting. They are doing a section of a painting in 3 hours, and so they have to transition painting from life, a 3-hour nice study, to actually doing a 30-hour or 60-hour or more painting. And it can be kind of a rough adjustment when you're used to doing those quick classroom studies. So study from life to help you when you go home and you train in your studio. It's very, very valuable. You will see edges and color a lot differently working from life. But you're not going to be able to get a human being to sit for you at a cost-effective rate for the hours you need to do a painting. So you will probably have to be utilizing photo reference for most of that, and that's not a bad thing at all. It's just one discipline you have to train yourself for. I do not intend to finish this full painting tonight. I'm going to do what I can in 3 hours and then finish what I need to later. I'm just going to go as much as, finish what I can and call it a 3-hour study, and then go home and work on it some more.
Speaking of which, we're coming up in 50 minutes or so. Do you want to take a break soon? Do you want to keep powering through?
I usually just keep going when it comes to still life. Like, I might take a break in an hour, but you guys can get up and move around. So I'm kind of, once I sit down, I just keep going.
We have another question. What medium are you mixing with your oils?
I'm just using Gamsol. Just plain old Gamsol turp. At home, I sometimes use liquid gel. It's like it's not their regular liquid, it's kind of an amber color. And I really like it for mixing into darks because it keeps them from getting flat. So I use that at home. But not in this phase of painting. I don't use mediums at this phase. type answers and you and I verbally answer? How does that work?
No, most of it's you verbally answering, but I'll throw something up there like just now. Just let people know that we'll take little looks at the still life. Since you're not going to be taking breaks on, so we'll move the camera occasionally to look at it. Or if there's like a specific follow-up question, like what's that brand that she mentioned, I'll type it in.
Oh, okay. This whole live thing is new to me.
Technology.
I know. Things have changed since I started painting. Not. Say though, man, we are so lucky to live in a digital age as artists. When I first started, digital cameras were just barely a new technology, and I saved up to get my first like four megapixel camera, and I thought it was the greatest thing. It wasn't even an SLR; it was just a point and shoot. Man, that was something. And now, if you don't even have that on your phone, you just think it's got to be thrown away.
So Margaret O'Brien has a question. She says, "Hi, Meadow from the UK. I noticed that as you were blocking in areas, you leave the canvas visible. Can you talk about your paint application method, please?"
It's not actually something I wish I did. I complain about that a lot myself, that when I'm blocking stuff in, I leave canvas showing. Although some of my favorite artists do it beautifully, like Robert Coombs, who's just a fantastic figurative painter. And he allows a lot of canvas to come through, and it's just awesome. It looks like sparkling light. And when I do it, it always looks like unfinished. But in this phase, I'm trying not to get too much paint on there because I want to be able to use a little bit of broken color, which means layering on top. So I'm not really filling in those outer areas all the way. With the flag, for instance, like I want to be able to come in and put in some of the beige colored stripes, so I didn't want to just stain that all in dark red. I thought, well, should I just do stripes first, or do I want to make it cohesive and stain it in like this and then come back in with some beige and then go back into the red to get that textural effect. So some of it's done on purpose, like this area here, because I want to be able to come back in and put lettering in and kind of work around that, so I didn't want to be too opaque there. But like on this little teddy bear head, I want to paint him more opaquely. I don't want to have a lot of canvas coming through. So
We got a question on the title and author of the book you mentioned earlier, the supply book.
oh, it's the artist. I have to look it up. It's a blue book. I can see it in my head. Artist, method, and material. You can probably find it on Amazon and get the ISBN.
Right.
It's a great resource. Did you find it?
Phone's taking forever. No, I mean.
Hang in there, we'll get it.
What's the title was, Meadow?
It's Artists, Methods, and Materials Handbook. I'm watching that.
Artist Handbook of Materials and Techniques by Ralph Mayer.
Is it blue?
No, this one is, it was the 5th edition of this one.
Oh, okay. Well, let me see what it looks like. Oh, I think that's it. Yeah. Mine's just got a baby blue cover on it. It's like literally 15 years old. Is that something important there?
No. Well, yes, but it's okay.
What is it?
It's the hotspot.
Oh.
Okay.
No, I broke something last time we were filming, so I just...
You broke something?
Well, I kind of stood up and knocked over a microphone and dented it really bad. So, and it was like I totally jinxed myself. I was like, you better keep that stuff away from me because I'm going to break something. And then like 2 minutes later.
The book was from like 1940, yeah?
Oh, I don't know. This one, it's been updated consistently.
Because this one says since 1940 when it was originally published, the Artist Handbook has become indispensable for thousands of practicing artists.
That's probably it. That sounds about right. But they update it so that way you're not dealing with old information.
Samir Asnani asks, in the beginning of your art career, what were your biggest technical mistakes that you made when drawing or oil painting?
When drawing?
Or oil painting?
I would say probably just drawing in general. Something I still struggle with is, accuracy and perspective. Freehand perspective is always difficult. I don't think how to answer that because I look at drawing as being all-encompassing rather than specific. But one of the things I really struggled with a lot, and I preached it a lot, is understanding values. It took me 4 or 5 years before I understood how color and value work. I would just look at color and not value, and so that was a really hard transition to let go of my idea of what color should look like and actually translate it into a value. And when I started doing that, things got a lot better in portrait work for me. But currently, I struggle with making people feel like they're part of the environment they're in. Making it feel natural and not contrived and cobbled together. Because most of the time you kind of have to do that with your reference. You have to compose several different things to make a scene. And that's something I find is hard to do. I didn't do any illustration work as a student, and I wish I would have, because that helps you prepare yourself for scenarios that you wouldn't normally get by just doing life painting and things like that. So when students have an opportunity to do some illustration work as part of their training, I think it's a really good idea to do that. Even if you don't have an intention of doing illustration, good painting is just an illustration anyway, really. It just has a subject matter that's maybe different.
Got another question here from Michael. He asks, how many finished oil paintings do you need for a gallery to take you seriously?
Well, if you're really good, you probably only need a couple. But as far as like going into a gallery, a portfolio of about 12 solid pieces is advisable. Like when I first started, I had a portfolio, and I had a lot of different examples, but I went through and pulled out the things that just weren't, they were just like student work. I tried to really have pieces that were indicative of what I wanted to be painting, and not just, here, I can paint this and I can draw that and I can do this. I wanted to show that this is what I can bring to your gallery, this particular subject matter. And galleries are pretty picky now. So you need to look at the gallery and decide what you are able to give them that they don't get from their other artists. Like you could be an artist that is a, up and coming artist that's bringing a better price point to a gallery, and so that could be what you're offering. You could have a particular style that's very in vogue right now, and you're coming in at a price point that is better than, say, a Morgan Weissling, who's just not going to be, something most people can collect. So galleries are now kind of trying to be a little more well-rounded in terms of their price points, and not pigeonhole themselves into only carrying artists that are 5-figure income. They know that they have to have a wide range, but they want good quality work. So if you have 8 good pieces, then bring 8 good pieces. Don't bring 12 because you want that number and there's 4 that aren't very good. One time I was asked to judge people who were applying for OPA membership for the signature status. And it was really tough because I get a body of work from somebody, and most of them put in about 12 pieces. And I'd go, God, these are great. Here's this great wildlife painter. And then at the end of the disc, there would be 3 portraits that were just god-awful. So I'd have to go, I don't know now. It's like totally swayed my opinion. At first, I thought this person was such a great artist, but then when they put the stuff in there that wasn't really their forte, it ended up kind of subtracting. So just be very aware of your strengths and trying to capitalize on them. A gallery isn't looking for someone to do everything. They're looking for a specific thing. So, if you're Kyle Polzin, you're going to bring awesome and amazing Western still lifes to a gallery. I've yet to see him put in his portrait. I don't know if he can paint. He probably can. He's a really good artist, but he obviously seems to know what he's needed for, and that's what he gives them, and he sells out. I mean, his work is very, very popular. That's something I've been learning. Pick a gallery that you feel like you'd be a good fit for. Don't just say, oh, I want to be in Trailside because it's the best gallery, and that's a good long-term goal. But like someone like me, if I tried to show there, if they even took me, which they probably wouldn't, I wouldn't even probably have any space on the wall. They would, have a million other people in there that are 10 times better than me, and so it's not really going to be a very good match at this point. If you have your favorite artists, look and see where they show, and if that's the way the subject you paint and that style you work in, and you say, that's a good match. I think I could bring something to that gallery.
Samir asks, do you feel trepidation before starting a piece? And if so, how do you get over it?
Yeah, I do. I do feel that way. Generally, when I have a lot of trepidation, it means I'm either not prepared for the magnitude of what I'm going to paint, or maybe I'm a little rusty with painting. And so what I'll do, like on a big piece, generally I feel most insecure about starting on a big painting because when they go bad, they go really bad and they're really big. And so you just got this really big bad painting, and not bad in a good way either. So what I like to do is do a color study of a big piece, and that helps me get warmed up and gives me a little bit of confidence, and it also helps me plan for pitfalls. So I can feel like, gosh, you know, this area over here is going to be a tough one. I better think about that before I just jump into it. But I'd say I'm kind of an impulsive person, so more often than not, I probably am excited to start a painting and then get trepidation or that feeling of dread about halfway through the painting when I realize it's falling far short of the glory in my mind of what I thought it was going to be. And that's so disappointing. Like, I had all these hopes and dreams for this painting, and now it just sucks. And, you know, that's just part of it. You have to embrace the failure or your perceived failure. Maybe it's not even a failure. Sometimes a bad painting is a good learning lesson, and when you start your next painting, you are 10 times more prepared, and you've learned so much from that. I mean, really, you can't learn any other way. If you just sat down and painted good paintings, I think it wouldn't be very rewarding. I mean, you need to have good paintings here and there, because it's like the carrot, you know, dangling. But you can't expect that they're all going to just go wonderfully smooth. So you have to kind of trick yourself. Find ways to get motivated. For me, a lot of it's just getting the canvas stretched and drawing it in. That's like getting my sea legs, getting warmed up on it, getting excited about it. If it's something really big, I'll definitely do a comp, or maybe even more than one comp. I might do like a miniature for values, and then I might do a little bit bigger color comp. Or I might even say, gosh, this one figure in the painting really intimidates me. It's an area that's unresolved, so I might just do a more finished study of that one particular figure in the painting. But I really love starting painting. That's, for me, just the first 10% and the last 10% is what you live for in a painting. It's that middle area I just absolutely hate. It's just awful. The teenage years.
So the awkward teenager.
Awkward teenage
Yep.
years. It's just terrible.
Marlene wants to know, Marlene Lee asks, do you have a routine every day for your art practice?
Exercise. Exercise has become a very important part of my routine, because being an artist is such a sedentary thing. And you'll find that if you really want to be able to sit and paint for 6 hours in a day, you've got to keep your body in shape, because it's such a sedentary thing, and you'll start to get stiff. Like, you'll have a hard time even holding your arm up because you're out of shape. And you need to have a way to clear your brain, and for me, that's one of the bigger parts of it, is doing something fitness-wise to keep me from turning into a big slug. And you know, if the painting's kind of hitting a rough spot, I might get up and go for a run, clear my head. And when I go out running, I think about painting a lot while I'm doing it. Sometimes that's where you get ideas. Like, I'll think about, gosh, when I get back, I'm going to go through that reference, I'm going to look for this particular thing, and I'm going to start something. And I did that last night. I went for my run. I thought about what I was going to stretch a canvas for when I got home, and got my reference, and got a couple panels stretched today. I don't paint every day. Ideally, you would. There's times, like when I'm sending, in the busy season of my gallery, I'm sending them a lot of work. There was one month back in February, I think I sent out about 15 pieces in a month. It was really busy, really, really busy. And so I was painting like every day, all day long. And then I usually kind of get burned out and I just, hit a wall. Matter of fact, I didn't even paint much of anything in June. I did some bad paintings in May, and then I didn't paint anything much in June. So sometimes you go through phases. Sometimes you're working on getting your reference and coming up with ideas. And other times you're just painting those ideas, you're putting them down. Always thinking about it though.
Samir asks, what are the most typical mistakes you see in beginning students?
Well, when it comes to painting class, generally what I see is people going into portrait painting without having any head drawing experience. That's a really common mistake I see. And then you're trying to learn how to draw with paint, which is really hard. It's very hard to control. It just goes all over the place. So that's probably one of the more common problems I see is that people want to paint really bad, and it's totally understandable. To me, that's kind of like the whole point. For me, drawing is to learn how to paint, so that's why I did it. I didn't draw because I wanted to get a nice drawing, although that's definitely a lot more altruistic. I was never like that. I was always, my ulterior motive was always to paint. But trying to address drawing before painting is really, really good, a good plan. That's probably one of the #1 problems I see. Another big problem kind of goes to materials. I see people taking a class and I'll say, okay, now here's what you want to do. You want to respect your materials. You want to do this. You want to do that. And they don't clean their brushes. They don't respect the supplies. So they'll come in and their palette's old and the paint's really dry and they're trying to paint with it. And I'll say, you need to scrape this off because it's going to just hold you back from being able to come in and paint. So I think sometimes people just don't treat that aspect of it because it's just not something you really think much about with painting. And that's a big part of it. Coming in and being ready to go and prepared. That's I guess being prepared for the class you're going to take is probably the thing I tend to see more often. Another thing I see quite a bit is underestimating just how difficult it is, and being really hard on themselves unnecessarily. And I was that way too, and I still am. Like when a painting goes badly, I just kind of hate myself a little bit, and that's just pretty natural. But I think some people come in and they're like, I've been painting for 3 weeks, how come I'm not amazing? It's like, well, you need to do it for probably 3 years before you can start asking or complaining about that. Just underestimating just how difficult it is.
Greg Goodman says,
Hi, Greg.
I recognize that bear. Double exclamation points.
Yeah, this bear gets around. I have 3 of these little bears. And this one I made a little outfit for him, so I'm just really kind of attached to him. Tom, what's he doing on a Friday night? He should be taking his wife out.
Yeah, look where I am now.
Well,
right?
That's true.
No, this is fun stuff. We're going to take a look at the still life here while Meadow's talking about the bear. I think it's a good time to take a peek at it. The setup. Meadow, do you have anything to say about the setup? Any insight into it?
Well, I want to do something with this theme because I have a new nephew on the way, and
Congratulations.
Yeah, and he's going to be here in October, and I like as a gift to give little paintings. So when my other nephew was born, he got a little painting, and now when my new nephew's born, he's going to get a little painting. So I wanted something that kind of had like a, you know, a child's theme, but not overly babyish. So that's why I picked it. And I love circus stuff. I think the colors are great. It's hard to find vintage circus stuff, so I don't have a lot of it. But that little book is really pretty cute. The colors are nice on it. I roughly have sort of a patriotic color theme going on. So I want to, you know, be a little bit of an Americana feel to it as well. My nephew, he's going to be in a patriotic family.
Now you mentioned that you made the outfit. Now a lot of our people watching, I'm not sure if they're aware that you make a lot of your reference, don't you?
Yes, I do. Again, that goes to being resourceful. I like nice things, but I can't always afford to get what I want, so I have to make it. And when I first started painting for galleries, I was painting the colonial era, which is, you know, 18th century work. The beginning of America was sort of where I was going, and I wanted to put my models in costumes. And so when I started to research how I was going to get these costumes, I found that they were so badly out of my price range that I wouldn't be able to paint that subject. And I'm also not the kind of person that's creative enough to make something up, you know, like have somebody in their street clothes and then just paint them as if they were wearing, you know, a Marie Antoinette dress. So I knew I needed practical effects rather than CG. So I went and bought my first dress, and it was $600, and I thought, my God, how am I going to do a whole series of painting when I only have this one dress and I can't afford any more for the rest of the year, let alone pay the model and all that other stuff. So I got online and I learned how to sew online. Basically, I found there's a lot of good costume websites out there and people, kind of nerdy artist types, and I taught myself how to sew. And now I just, if I need something for a particular class, or if I want to really paint something in general, I will make an outfit for it. And sometimes that even comes down to still life class. I made a little circus tent, I made a few different doll outfits. I painted balls and blocks and backdrops, and you know, just I've made like seed packets, like antique seed packets, because they're just so expensive. So you just learn how to do it. I did a painting one time of a kind of an outdoor market scene, and I bought dolls and props and photographed it outside and then put my model into the scene. So I used basically a maquette, or a, I don't know what you call it, like a movie set kind of, to get what I wanted out of the scene. And I've made a little bit of Native American leather work. I have a war bonnet that's half finished. I have a couple suede outfits. It's really hard to sew. Most of the sewing I like to do by hand. So it's just kind of become another like pastime or a hobby. And then out of that, I sort of started an internet business selling antique textiles. I don't know, it's just kind of one thing led to another.
We have a question from Joe Burgle. Are you exaggerating anything for emphasis?
Not exactly on purpose. Some of my stuff's not in the right place, drawing-wise, and that sometimes you don't really realize it until you start painting. You're like, oh, why did I put that there? Like, why is this elephant so high up here? Really, the top of him is about right here. So some things are an accident. And some, you know, like colors, I might exaggerate colors a little bit more. But generally, I would not consider myself skilled or creative in embellishing beyond much of what I see. I'm just not that kind of an artist. I'm kind of literal, which is why I'm terrible at plein air painting. That's something where you kind of have to improvise quite a bit. It's just terrible.
We have another question here. I just finished some realistic paintings. I would like to loosen up and paint in a more painterly style. How would you suggest doing that?
Start with simple subject matter. I think probably your fruits and vegetables are one of the better things to learn how to paint loose. And try to, you know, scoop your paint up, put down a tile, and move on to the next tile, and work in a way that's a little bit more faceted or tiled. And don't allow yourself to go back in and noodle the details. But it's easier if you start with something that isn't so detailed. Like if you put just some nice pears out on a backdrop with natural light, you can paint those with a really fresh, loose style. And just keep the planes as simple facets. Tell yourself, I'm not going to smooth or blend in between each of these joints. I'm going to put down a tile and move on. It's definitely something you have to kind of practice. But it helps if you avoid painting something really fussy. So I would start with simple. I started with just colored paper that I folded in different shapes and used a palette knife rather than a brush. And so the whole painting was done with a palette knife. And it really did force me to get away from any kind of detail because you can't with a palette knife. I mean, you're basically laying something on and sculpting it with the knife. But it's a really fun exercise. It just kind of takes a while to get used to simplifying things down to what's most important. And that's what that can help you do, is boil it down to the essence of what you're trying to paint.
Martin W. asks, would you call this triadic color scheme? And do you apply color theory or is it intuitive now?
I've never really learned color theory, the official color theory. So the thing I think about in terms of color, I think of the warm and the cool. I think of temperature. So I think of my light source. If my light source is warm, then that means that the shadow family needs to feel cooler. So if it's a warm orange in the light, then I need to think of a cooler orange in the shadow. I have to make sure I'm thinking that way through the whole process because it's very easy to start to adjust your eye to seeing most things as being warm. And I tend to do that a lot. But I would say it's, intuitive maybe. I just have a feeling for what colors I like, and those are what I use. My main color mixing principle that I use is to think of complements. So if I'm mixing something that's blue and it's coming out too blue, I'll add orange into it. And that's how I basically do all my color mixing, is I ask myself, if the color is not what I want, what do I want from it? Do I want it to be duller? Well, then I'll add a complement to it. Generally, the colors I'm using are probably too bright, so I need to harmonize more. And I use complements to harmonize. Some artists might use like a universal color that they put throughout their whole palette. Like I always talk about Zias Liang, and most of his, like if you look even in the lightest colors in his paintings, like his lightest whites, they have a greenish tint to it. So it's almost like he's using some little bit of green that kind of universally unifies everything together. Whereas like someone like Morgan Weissling, his paintings almost all have a bit of a lavender cast because he likes to paint with cool north light, and so everything's being influenced like that. So, you know, that's probably thinking more in terms of theory. But I mainly rely on color complements for mixing, and I just constantly ask myself questions as I'm going. Oh, is his face too yellow? I'll add a little purple in there to knock it back.
So Samir asks, what was the best art advice you ever received?
Wow.
That's a loaded question.
That's a really hard question to answer. I'd say probably gotten the best advice from my husband, who has helped me treat it like it's a job rather than just a whimsical hobby. And so I don't know if that's really advice or if that's more, hey, if this is what you want to do with your life, you're going to have to take these steps to get there. And that, for me, that really helped, because I'm kind of an impulsive person, and I see something I want to do and I just jump in and do it, rather than think about, well, how do I get through these steps to get to my goal? What is my goal? And we basically tailored our life to do this for a living. And so we had to make certain changes and sacrifices in our life to get to that goal. And that was something that I hadn't really thought about very much when I started. I just was like, oh, I just want to paint, it's fun. And he was like, well, you know, how many hours are you going to commit a week to it? You know, how are you going to get your work to the gallery? How are you saving your money for the framing? Are you thinking about the whole business aspect of doing art? It's not just about sitting down and painting. A lot of art's about, you know, networking and branding yourself a little bit, unfortunately. Those are all really important aspects of getting to your final goal. Painting, unfortunately, isn't the largest part of that. And I think it was really helpful that I had somebody who was already kind of doing things a little bit more professionally that could say, well, if you want to be treated like a professional, you have to act like one, and it's a job. And treating art like a job doesn't sound very romantic, but it's kind of the necessary part of the equation. It sort of separates people that do it for fun and those who do it for a living. And you know, when I sit down and I don't like a painting, well, I can't just say, I don't feel like doing that now. I have to ask myself, what did I do wrong? How am I going to recover my time from this? What am I going to learn from this? How can I fix this? Is this salvageable? Do I have a chance of even getting to do anything with this? And do I cut my losses now and move on? And those are all, you know, they're just hard questions. It's not as probably as romantic as I thought it was going to be. So for me, it's more about treating it like a job, and I just wasn't really prepared for that aspect of it.
And for those who don't know, your husband is illustrator E.M. Gist.
Correct. So, yeah, and his philosophies, he's always been the kind of person where he just keeps banging on the door until the person will hire him to do the job. So he tries to be very consistent and, you know, just constantly trying to get people to look at his work and take him seriously, which has helped me when I watch him, because rejection is such a big part of it that I'm the kind of person, oh, they didn't like my work, well, I won't show them anything ever again, rather than saying, okay, well, next year I'm going to focus on what I can do to make myself more appealing to that particular gallery or that particular area, and get my work accepted, and just keep doing it until I wear people down and get them to want to represent me.
Joe Burgle asks, what's the best defense against muddy colors?
Don't overblend. Tiling can really help with that. So earlier people were saying, you know, you're leaving some of this canvas showing in areas, and part of that is because I don't want to overblend early in the scene and just smash everything all down together and homogenize it too much. So I try to use more broken color. I try to make sure I have paint on my brush when I'm putting on another stroke, rather than constantly just taking thin paint and smearing it thinner. Also, you know, start with your richer darks and build towards your lights. As you can see, I haven't used a whole lot of light pigment, and I've been really careful, and I haven't even gone to the lightest values yet. I'm working towards it, so I'm going towards the light family, and that for me helps me stay away from chalky and muddy colors, is that I try to build towards those brighter highlights. So I start a little more colorful and I start a little darker than what I see as my final product, because it's a lot easier to adjust it rather than try to backtrack.
Samir asks, did you read Alla Prima? And if so, what was the biggest thing you learned from it?
Yeah, he's really damn good.
That's what everyone got from that.
Yes, I did. I didn't do any of the color charts, I admit that. That just wasn't my personality, so I just didn't even do it. I still like to look through Alla Prima. I think, you know, Schmidt brought so much to the art world, and he kind of helped bring back that professional realism that's really nice. Kind of took people out of that sloppy, gloppy 70s stuff and made figurative work more in vogue again. So he's a huge contributor to the art world. But I like looking at his work, especially for how he handles just those simple loose backgrounds and convincingly makes them look like there's something happening there even though there really isn't. I think the thing to get from Schmidt is that you have to be disciplined in drawing. He's a draftsman above all else, and that has allowed him to paint the way he does because he's so skilled. I mean, to be able to just look at a blank canvas and be able to see where the eyes, the nose, and the mouth are going to end up, that's pretty special ability that comes from a lot of practice. And he's just awesome because he still trains himself. You know? He still considers himself a student. You're always a student. You're always a lifelong art student.
Marlene Lee has a question. She asks, how long did you paint before you started in galleries?
Let's see. Probably about 5 or 6 years. I got into a gallery not long after I got married, so it's probably about 5 or 6 years. Jeff had been encouraging me to at least put still lifes, you know, up in a gallery, try to find a gallery, and I just wasn't ready. And to tell you the truth, when I got in the gallery, I still wasn't ready. And I got into this, you know, nice gallery in Carmel, and just my work sat there for a year and never sold anything. It wasn't exactly what I thought it was going to be. I thought, oh, I'm in the gallery, you know, and I'm going to start making my money now, and I can quit my job, and no, it was not the case. I worked at my job for many years after that, which is definitely advice I'd give to most students, is try to have several avenues of income, because I'll do really well in my gallery season for, you know, several months out of the year, and then I won't even see a check for 3 or 4 months. So, you know, you know, unless you're the kind of person that has a trust fund or something, you're probably going to have other sources, you know, several galleries. I have one gallery in Montana where the season runs from 4th of July to Labor Day, which is barely 3 months. So, you know, if that was my only gallery, well, what would I do for 6 or 9 months out of the year? I wouldn't have any money coming in. It would just be horrible. You know, and at my level, I have to sell work constantly to cover my costs, basically. So it can be very feast or famine for artists. So I think a lot of people, they really want to be in a gallery because it's kind of means you've arrived, I guess. And I was a little shocked that that wasn't the case. It just meant that now everyone could see my mistakes in a public arena, and I could no longer just throw things in the dog pile and not worry about it. Now I had paintings out there that weren't that great, and so that was kind of a shock to me. I mean, it was great because it's motivating in terms of you get work done because you have prospective clients. Like, I would not be nearly as productive if I didn't have a gallery. Like, my one gallery constantly is asking me for work constantly, and it's great because it gives me a motivation. It boosts me up to get me painting. And he'll email me and says, "Can you give me 3 things? We have a show in 2 weeks." And all of a sudden, I have to kick it in gear and get work to him, and it's really kind of fun. I like feeling like I'm in demand. That makes me motivated. But then there's times when I don't hear from him for 2 months, and so then I have to kind of, you know, figure out my own way of how I'm going to survive for those quiet months, quiet times.
So we have a question from Jay Ham. When you began teaching other students, did you feel that you were prepared or confident in your ability to teach?
Hell no.
And what advice would you give to a new drawing or painting teacher?
Spend time looking and watching your students and try to analyze what it is that you think you could help them with the best. That's kind of something I like to do, is just to watch people a little bit to see what they might be consistently struggling with, and to get the right timing to step in to help them. You know, you don't want to jump in too early, prematurely, to help someone in a painting, because they could be at that phase where they have good starts, but they have troubles in the mid phases of painting. So your job as a teacher is to really kind of figure out where they are in terms of their development, and to try to summarize a single focal thing to work on. I've had teachers before that had given me something new every week to do, and so I couldn't really build I just couldn't. I mean, every week it was so scattered. I'd come in, okay, well, now you need to do this. Okay, well, last week you said to work on that. I know, but now you're going to be doing this. And for me, it was just really hard to be consistent, because, you know, I needed something that was very, like, step by step. Just baby steps is how you build up your skill set. You know, it'd be better to walk away from a class retaining, you know, 5% of it that you really lock down, rather than saying, oh, you know, I did everything in there and I did all the stuff I was supposed to do, but then 6 months later you've completely 100% forgotten everything in the class. So it's as a teacher, your job is to try to give people the skills that they need the greatest amount of at that particular time, and not try to give them everything necessarily. I mean, you could say, yeah, you need to work on that, you need to work on that, you need to work on that, and it's like so many things to work on. It's like, why am I even bothering? But you could look at a person and say, you know, I've been watching you, and I noticed that you start your drawing off, it's really nice, but then you seem to not know where you want to go after that point. So let me sit down, and after you get your painting started, I want to come over and show you what to do to build up your shadow family, for instance. And you could say, now this semester, let's just try to focus on that, getting to the mid phase of the painting confidently. For me, teaching is gratifying because I want to see people progress. I want to see people feel like they're really retaining the information. And I'm not there to impart my style on somebody. I sit down and I really try to figure out how can I improve what they are as an artist. Some people are really good with color. Some people are really good with line work and design. Some people are really good with brushmanship. And I want to try to add and contribute to that and help them become even greater at that. So that's what I do as a teacher. I try to really work on just an area of the painting where I can try to make that a little bit better as best as I can. Sometimes people have a skill set that I don't even understand or possess, and it's like I don't even know what to do to work on that. I just don't. And, you know, I'll be honest, like I don't know what to do. You're really good at that. I don't know how to add to it. So I have to find something else to work on. But that's what's important, is making somebody the best version of themselves. I don't want, I mean, even though I train with Jeff, I never wanted to paint just like him. There were things about his paintings I really wanted to grasp and to implement in my paintings, but I didn't want to just be a copy of him. I wanted to add him to all the other artists I also admired and make my own combination. That was what was important to me. The things I'm attracted to are a little different than other people, and so I have to figure out which artists are going to add to that. So many good artists out there. Get out and go see shows. We just saw a great Soroya exhibit. It was just awesome. It just reminds you why you do it.
So when you go to work on this in a different phase, like let's say when you go home to work on this more, would you wait for this stage to tack up a little bit before you start going in again, or are you looking to tackle this wet into wet a little bit more?
No, first thing I would do when I get home is analyze what I like about it and what's not working. If there's an area I rush through, for instance, and I'll probably try to scrape that back a little bit. And then let it get tacky, so in like a day or two, then go back in and start to refine an area. So yeah, this is just, to me, this is just a lay-in. This isn't even any, it's not even, this is an embryo. It's not even born yet, so.
Your analogy and metaphors are fantastic.
My husband's been teaching me about metaphors, but mine are kind of lame. These are really good. They're kind of astute, and you really go, oh yeah, that's great. And then mine are just like, wow, okay, that was disgusting, or now I'm horrified. It's usually something really bad, potty humor, or something terrible like that. That's one of the hardest things to learn as a teacher. Man, there's just some things you just can't say out loud. And, your edit button might get stuck sometimes. So, and when I first started teaching, I was so nervous that when I'd have to work on someone's painting, I would start to laugh. And it wasn't because, I thought anything was funny. It was because I was really uncomfortable with the fact, okay, I'm new. I was a student last week, now I'm a teacher. You're in my class. Now I have to trade roles over. I'm not really feeling like I want to take the authority here. And if there was problems with the painting, I didn't know how to fix it. Oh, it just made me so uncomfortable. And even now, I mean, there's lots of times when, quite frankly, their skills are better than mine in that class, and I don't know what to do. It's like, I don't know, it makes me really nervous. Learning how to give people advice that helps without being insulting and, being, tender. Sometimes you got to be a little rough with people because that's the way they like it, but some people, they need a little bit, they just need a little gentler way of putting things. Trying to remember and recollect what it was like when you were there in that particular position. And it's like just a couple kind words can be the difference in somebody coming back and persevering, and the difference between somebody quitting and never doing it again. And it's such a hard thing. I mean, I've almost quit so many times I can't even count anymore. And who knows, I'll probably still keep going through those phases of wanting to quit. It gets hard. The better you are, the harder it is. I think it's kind of ironic. You think, oh, I finally sold a painting. This is great. I've gotten where I want to go. And then you just realize, wow, it just keeps getting harder and harder. You keep upping the ante for yourself. You keep setting up higher standards and, painting bigger paintings and being more complicated. And that's why you do it, because it's so challenging. You have to keep upping the ante for yourself to want to keep doing it. But man, sometimes you just say, I just want to go back to those days when I just rolled into class and I painted a portrait in 3 hours and everybody liked it, and I went home and that was it. But I think as long as you are prepared to work hard and to congratulate yourself on your successes and not get too down on your failures, I think you'll find that you'll just keep doing it and get better at it. It's a very emotional thing, unfortunately, because it's one of the few things you do that you tie your ego into so much, your soul into, where if you fail at a painting, you feel like you're a horrible person. It's like, most people, if they did their job and they fail at something on their job, they're like, whatever, I hated that thing. That was a stupid thing I had to write a paper about, or whatever they have to do to turn into a boss. Like I worked at Trader Joe's, so if I messed up my order, I felt kind of bad because I wanted to do the job, but I didn't feel like, oh, I just want to jump off a bridge. But if you do a bad painting, you're just like, man, I hate myself a little bit. It's a weird, I don't know why it is that way, but it's like you just personally, you take it so personal.
So we have a question from Samir. He asks, did you ever receive contradictory information from one teacher telling you one thing and another telling you something else?
All the time.
And how do you know what to apply and what not to?
I've always told people, if you're getting advice from different people and you keep coming across a consistency in it, like if you've heard a few times, hey, you need to work on your values. I think it's your values that are the problem. Or your color and your values off. If you hear that from a few different people, you can probably take that one to the bank. You can probably say without a doubt that, oh, that's something I need to work on. But you have to understand that every teacher is an artist themselves, and they're all students. We're all students as teachers. I might give somebody advice on something, and that's going to be personally biased towards what I'm working on, where I'm at in my process. Like I work a lot on color temperature. So that might be the thing I talk about a lot. to people when I look at their color in their painting. I might say, you know, you're not paying attention, you're warm and cool, because that's what I'm working on as a person. And it's kind of weird, but I mean, we're just students too, and we're just, you know, in a different phase, and it is kind of odd. So you have to make sure that you just take some of that advice with a bit of a grain of salt. You know, if I took all the advice from all the different people, number one, I would have never gone to the school, because I had a teacher at my old school tell me not to go here because he said I would be generic like everybody else. So if I'd taken that advice, I wouldn't even be doing art now. So I'm really glad I didn't. I went with my gut. And in the end, you got to go with that. I'd had people say, you should do this for your paintings, you know, and I think, I don't really feel it. I just don't have the heart to do that. You know, you should do commissions. You can make really good money. And I did a couple, I hated it, and I thought, well, I ain't doing it. I don't care if it pays $1 million. I don't like doing it, so I'm not going to do it. I think you've got to listen to that little voice inside. You need to look at your work honestly and realistically and say to yourself, what am I good at? What do I think is my strength? What am I most drawn to painting? Don't paint something just because it's marketable or because somebody else does it really well. You have to bring your own thing to the table, always, because that's what's going to get you through all the roughness that every painting goes through, or those dark months when you just feel like you've been doing the same thing over and over and it's not going anywhere. And that's being true to yourself, you know. You know, sometimes people give you advice and it's kind of crappy because maybe they're jealous of you, or they just don't have any compassion. So you gotta think about it for a while. Most of the advice I've gotten has been excellent. I mean, basically everything comes down to just practice more, do more of it, do more bad painting to become a good painter. Oh, okay. Is that all it is? Because I can do that. But it's uncomfortable, you know. Failing is not a very fun thing. I mean, one time I went out to a show that I was in, and I took my family out there, and we drove all the way out. And I was not feeling that great about the painting, and then my parents and my family stood in front of it, and they kind of picked it apart right in front of me in the gallery. And, oh, it was just horrible. It was like a nightmare. And you know, it's like sometimes, man, you just gotta have a strong stomach to keep coming back to it. No, it's not that. Do it because you love it. And that's the bottom line. You do it because you just can't see your life without it. Which is why I always come back to thinking about it. It's like, there's nothing else I enjoy as much. Yeah, sometimes I absolutely hate it. But the times that I love it, there's nothing like it. It's an amazing feeling.
What I always say, anything that's worth it's hard, you know?
It is so true. I mean, and people a lot of times will say, well, I just don't have enough time to do that or get that good. And it's like, what else are you going to do? I mean, time is time. It's going to pass no matter what. So all this time you've been sitting here talking, you could have gotten better. So. You have to look at mistakes as an opportunity to grow and to address that issue, and be glad you're doing it as a student and not as a professional.
So would you say that failure is an important part of painting?
It's essential. it's also essential to have success as well. I'm not saying I'm so zen that, oh, failure is wonderful. I embrace it, because I don't. I hate it. It's just awful, and it makes me discouraged and kind of, cranky, and just like, what the hell am I doing with my life here? And then, the next morning I wake up and I go, all right, I'm gonna get back on there, get back on the horse. I'm gonna tackle this again. But it is essential. I've learned that for me, things that come easily don't really hold my attention very long. It's the challenge. I think as a human being, you grow through diversity, and it's that challenge that strengthens you and gets you to keep up in the ante. It's just like exercise, First, I could only run a quarter mile without dying, and then I could run a half a mile without dying, and now I can run a little bit longer, and you just keep upping the ante, and you keep changing your mindset. And the same goes in painting. You go, well, I just did that scene with 3 people in it. That was the hardest thing I ever painted. Next time I'm going to paint 5 people. And then you crash and burn, and you're just like, oh, I'm not doing that again. That was stupid. But sure enough, a couple months later, you get that itch again. You just got to keep scratching it. And that's what's great about painting. It's like, it's a fantasy, and you get to be in charge of it. It's like a movie, and you call the shots. You also have to, take your punishment sometimes, but I don't know. I just think it's just such a unique thing that there's nothing else like it out there. It just requires all of your concentration and a little part of your soul to do it. It's not something you can go, I'm just going to kind of coast through this thing, phone it in. You can't. It just doesn't work.
So another question here. How has your views on art changed as you became more advanced?
I definitely thought of it as more of a business. That's probably the biggest thing that changed. I have become more possessive of my time. When you're self-employed, sometimes people just think, you just have all this time. And they're like, oh, you're not doing anything right now. And you're like, well, yeah, I'm home, but I'm at the easel. I'm working. This is hard work, and it's exhausting, and I have to take it seriously if I want to get this job done. And I think most people don't probably think, oh, you just roll out of bed and that's what pops out of your hand, this beautiful work of art. And it's like, no, this is taking everything out of me to get this thing done. Especially when it's not going well, you just, man, it's like, I'd rather be vacuuming, I'd rather scrub the floor, I'd rather clean the toilet than work on this painting. And it just happens sometimes. It's just how you feel. And being serious about it and taking it like it's a job is definitely the least romantic part about it. I'm kind of naive about a lot of things, and I'm kind of learning, I guess. Bottom line, you have to love it, because that's the only thing that gets you through it. If you go into it for money, you're going to be extremely disappointed. Yeah, you can always cite the people like Turkney, $1 million paintings, but there's only a couple of people you can really say that do that. I mean, you have a better shot of going into waste management and making that kind of money. I mean, honestly. I just try to set my life up so I can do art. You know, try not to get myself into financial obligations that make me have to do things I don't want to do. Try to live as simple of a lifestyle as I can. So that way I can do this for a living. Because I love it. It's such a cool thing to do. But, you know, it's unpredictable. You know, it was nice before when I had a regular paycheck. That was really nice. But anytime I sell a painting, I get so excited about it that it just keeps me pumped up. Sometimes just a little painting sale kind of gives you the boost that, hey, somebody liked my work enough to put their hard-earned money down on it, and you know, it just makes you feel a little bit validated, I guess.
So everybody has their reasons for getting into painting and drawing. What would you say got you into it? Did you draw and paint since a young age? Was there something specific that made you, that drew you towards painting?
I was always really busy as a kid, like in trouble most of the time because I was just such a busy doing something, like getting into stuff. I love to just go make projects, and so as a matter of fact, like my grandparents had a drawer in their house, so when I came over there, I could just get in that drawer and take all the stuff out of it and do stuff with it. They would like throw junk in there before I would come to visit, so that way they could keep me busy. I was always just a really busy kid and just get into these, you know, like building projects. I would gather things from outside and make like three-dimensional forts and castles, and just kind of always lived in this fantasy world. And then when I was in high school, that was pretty much the only class I wanted to go to, was my painting class, or my art class, and my ceramics class. And I still love ceramics too. That's another art form I'd love to get to do again. But I never thought about it as a career or anything like that. And my parents at the time were actually discouraging about it. They're like, you know, do it for fun, but you can't make a living at it. So go into something else. So when I got out of high school, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, so I went to junior college. And I went to junior college for 7 years, and I had about 100 units, and they were all art. I had taken one class that was non-art. It was really sad. You know, it was like every time the semester would come around and we'd sign up, I'd see what was on there, and I just couldn't help myself. I would just sign up for another art class. And I think I just wore my parents down. They were just like, you know, well, if you're going to be this headstrong about doing it, you may as well, you know, really do it and get a good education at it. And that was the hardest part, was finding a place I could get a good education, because it wasn't going to happen at the junior college level. But even when I started here, I never ever went here with the intention of doing it for a living at all. It was never it just wasn't something I took seriously in that way. I did it because I loved it. And I just thought, you know, I love doing this on the side, and I'll just work at my job, and, you know, my job pays okay. I can do both. I don't know what happened. It just kind of, I guess, you know, you just love it so much, you just keep tailoring your life around it. I really don't know what happened. It kind of surprised probably everybody in the world, especially my family. They're still shocked, I think. life is fleeting. You can't really put it in your hand. You can't really hold on to anything. Things can change so fast. I felt like, you know what, I'll take a risk on it because what do I have to lose? I can always do something else. And that's just kind of been my philosophy. That's why you really have to love it. But if you had asked me, what are you going to do when you grow up? I would have said I would like to be an artist, but everyone tells me that that's not possible, so I will do something else. And if they'd said, well, what would that be? I would have said, I don't care, because there really isn't anything I want to do. Nothing really. I mean, like my sister went into the biological sciences. She got her degree in biological science. And I was like, I don't want to do that. Ugh. I don't know, the whole thing where there's a will, there's a way, that's probably, there's some truth to that. Honestly, if I could just do it and not have to make a living at it, that would be nice too. It's definitely, you get to paint a little bit more for yourself, whereas when you have to make a living at it, sometimes you're painting stuff that's, some of it's, more commercial. I'm okay with that. I don't mind painting the majority of what I do to sell and then do personal work on the side as well. That really irritates me when people look down upon them anyway. Like, it's bad to take it seriously as a job. I think because people think it's just this lofty thing that you're just talented and born with, that it gives it the right to just be stuff you throw out there and don't take any mind to making a living at it.
So we have, I noticed there's a bit of paint buildup at the neck of the bear there. Is that something that you consciously do in textural areas, like fur or something along those lines?
Yeah, I want him to have probably the most paint buildup on him, because he's definitely, like, the way his fur handles the light is a lot different than the smoother surfaces. So I want to lay that area on a little bit thicker. I don't want to glob it all over, but I do want it to feel different than some of the other areas. Just like if I was painting a dark shadow, I don't want to glob the paint on there too much. Anything here where I've kind of built it up, it might be good to kind of scratch a little back too, just to get it to feel slightly different than the areas where the light's hitting it more. But
you mentioned,
fuzzy.
oh, sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
You mentioned in the darks you don't want to glob it on. Do you generally keep your darks thinner and more inky, or do you?
Yeah, ideally. But sometimes I mess up and I don't preserve them, and they just get all, especially when I have to overwork something like the painting I'm working on right now. Just miserable experience. It's like the neck of the shadow area. I kept trying every day to remember to just pull off all the paint I put on, because I was trying to keep it thin, but I was having some issues with drawing it. So eventually I just started to kind of build up paint, and I just don't like it. like one of those things, if you can plan everything ahead of time, like, okay, I'm gonna leave this area as thin as possible, I'm gonna have this something I'm gonna layer over so some of that texture comes through and it'll make it look more like the surface I'm trying to paint. You can remember to do all those things before you even put your brush down. You've already fought half the battle. You know, a lot of times people will say, man, I had such a good underpainting on this portrait. And then when I started to paint, it just got all messed up. And they would say, well, it's because some of these areas you just mowed over with thick opaque paint. And you probably needed to leave some, preserve some in there, so that way you could retain some of those little crisp notes that you had. And it just comes with experience. You gotta mess up a lot of paintings so you know, wow, I did that last time, I ain't doing it this time. Not like I like to fail at a painting, I don't, it sucks. But you do learn something from it. I'd watch Jeff do an awesome painting and then just scrub it. Like just for the sake of, I like the canvas. Like, oh my God, if I did that, I wouldn't even touch it ever again. It's just amazing. And he just scrubbed it. And it just always floored me.
So we have a good question from Samir here. He asked, how dramatically has your ability changed since before attending the atelier to now?
It's like two different worlds. It was so embarrassing.
It's one of the things I think would be interesting to show.
I know if I
first term versus now.
I wish I don't even think I kept very much stuff from the beginning because it's just so crappy. It is just completely night and day. Like Jeff always tells people, my first paintings look like Van Gogh on acid. That's what he likes to tell people. Hey, you know, she started out here, and they kind of were. They were really thick, uncontrolled, just crazy, swirling, like very much like Van Gogh. I really liked Van Gogh at the time, and I don't know, that's kind of what I wanted to paint like. Things have changed in that way, and it was just a complete blobby mess of bad drawing and lots of thick, colorful paint. Yeah, things have changed in terms of how I put paint down, that's for sure, if anything. I didn't understand tiling, any of that stuff. I'd either blend the life out of something or I would blob it to death with about 6 inches of thick paint. It's really embarrassing. My parents still have some things around the house, and when I go visit, I'm like, oh, come on. Can't you just throw that away or burn it or something? But you should just keep things for posterity, because especially when you're a student, because you're seeing things every day. You're not even thinking long term yet. So if you look at your work after 6 months, you're going to be completely shocked. So you have to kind of save that. I wouldn't say I was one of those people that started the school like Ben, who was already good when he got here. I was not. had bad habits. That's pretty much it. Plus, I worked primarily in acrylic before I started here. Yeah, pretty bad. And oil was something I just started to try to use before I got here. And oh, I hated oil paint. It was so sticky and it took forever to dry, I thought. Now I think, man, it dries too fast. Hey, how are you?
I actually have a question.
You do?
Yeah, could I?
From a real live person?
Am I allowed to ask a question?
Of course.
Okay. I was going to ask about working light. Do you like look for like particularly like neutral white bulbs, or do you calibrate?
You know what
like,
I've been
your
using
colors?
lately? I've been using LEDs.
Okay.
I got some from Costco that have been pretty good for the price.
Okay.
And Home Depot, like they have like usually about 3 different temperatures, and I like the bright one, like the bright, more neutral, more towards the warm spectrum.
Okay.
So that's what I've been using now because they're much cooler. And in the summer when I had those big 200-watt lamps over my head, it just got to be too much. So the LEDs are kind of expensive, but they last a lot longer and they don't put out so much heat, and they're also more energy efficient. And I like the light. It's really pretty nice. Before that, I was mainly using those natural light bulbs. You can get them like at Target. I can't remember the name of the brand, but they were kind of lavender color, and they were more in the middle. And then I also have an Ott light, which is like a balanced spectrum bulb. So I use that too, in addition. But yeah, I tend to like a lot of light while I'm painting, and it's as clean and clear as I can get. We don't have any north light windows in our entire home, so I can't even try to paint my north light, which is, like the artist's ideal. It just doesn't exist in our house. We don't have a single, it's just a brick wall. So I use those, but they work really good. Like this is really kind of warm, not ideal.
Yeah. Are you compensating for the fact that it's such a warm light with your color choices, or is it just kind of?
No, not really. Because when I get home and I finish this, I'll put it underneath my light source at home and make adjustments as need be. But like Jeff asked, do you want the overhead fluorescents on? I said no, because those are really green, and I'd rather paint, with just some warm, neutral light than a lot of green light.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, I think LEDs are probably one of the more promising lights for artists out there that I've found. I don't know, there's probably true strict artists that would say, don't use an LED. I don't know. I mean, you got all kinds of people like, oh, they paint a natural light, blah, blah, blah. Whatever, you know. It's like, I like the color of the bowl, so it's good. I try not to just use your run-of-the-mill incandescents because they are so yellow or orange that I find that can be hard to deal with. So that's why I like the more balanced LEDs.
Awesome. That was very helpful.
You're welcome.
One of the three of these.
So, a lot of your work in galleries is historical work, Regency era, Native American, colonial America. What draws you towards painting historical scenes?
I think because I just love the craftsmanship that went into those time periods. I mean, everything was made by hand, and I kind of got this like romantic notion of living on a farm and growing all my own food and making all my own clothes. And it's pretty ridiculous, but it's probably a bit of a backlash against everything today that's so modern and homogenized and mass-produced, and like you just kind of go through this robotic motion of things. And things just, you don't even like get to taste things the way they used to when they work all day and you come home and have food from their farm and things just tasted wonderful. When your wife would spend 6 months knitting you something, and then that's what you wore during the winter to keep warm, and she made it out of scraps of wool. There's just such a, to me, a nostalgic and romantic draw to that, but that's the time periods I like. Those are the time periods I like to paint. I'm just not really very interested in painting the modern day aesthetic. Very little of it, it just doesn't speak to me. And when I'm working on a painting, I like to do the beadwork on something, or I like to make the costume because I get to put myself in the mindset of the people that did it then. And though it wasn't romantic to them, it was just survival for them, I do think that there was a greater appreciation for things that were made by hand because of the necessity of it. And I think that translates into what doing art is, because you're creating something that really has no need. If there is no real need for survival to have a painting, but you do it, you create it, the act of creating it is ingrained in you, and somebody else appreciates that as well, that they want to own something that was made by hand. And I find that such a parallel for me. Yeah, I'm just very, very drawn to it. And there's other time periods I'd like to paint. I love the 1940s. I love World War II, and just what people did to sacrifice for the common good. I like that romantic idea of people giving their time to something that was valuable. I think things are just so fast moving now that you just don't really get to build a relationship like that with anything. It's like, I get a hole in my clothes and I go, throw that away. It's like, God forbid. They used to take a little wooden egg and put it inside a sock and you'd darn it. And you'd spend the evening fixing a hole in a sock. And it was just like so important because you'd taken a month to knit that sock in the first place. And you didn't have the resources or the time to just throw it out. You had to restore it. And it fascinates me what people did out of necessity. And they also added beauty to it. I mean, even the Shakers, they lived a very Puritan lifestyle. Everything they made had an aesthetic, a creative aesthetic to it that I find just amazing. That a utilitarian object could have that much thought put into it. I don't know, for me that's my connection to it. I want to paint that romantic memory. I mean, why else would you paint Native Americans? Because that is completely a lost, culture for a lot of it. Fortunately, there's things like powwows where people are getting to keep some of that tradition alive through dancing, but they're not going to be able to go out and make an elk tooth dress anymore, or make a real eagle feather headdress, because it's just it's just not probably politically correct to go and slaughter an animal for that. So it has to be done through more traditional symbolism, using turkey feathers instead that are shaped to look like an eagle feather. And I don't know. I just think it's fascinating, a way to preserve it. And luckily, there's people that paint today. Like the Jeremy Lip Kings and people that are painting. Just like Sean Cheatham would be a good example, kind of painting people, tatted up and beautifully done paintings. I'm just not interested in painting that, but I'm glad someone's doing that, so in 50 years people can look back at that nostalgia and say, hey, that was something that people spent time on. They got 1,000 piercings and got all kinds of tattoos. I mean, it's still an expression. I just, for me, it just doesn't suck me in enough to make me want to spend 60 hours on it.
So where do you see your subject matter going next? Do you have any ideas for where you might be shifting?
Well, for now, I want to stay painting the Native American culture. The more I do it, the more I enjoy it and see that it is. It's not a dying culture, but it's definitely one that needs to be written down and preserved and maintained. But I hope to grow as a better narrative painter. That's something that is really difficult, and I'm just not good at it. And I would like to be much better at painting the narrative scene, so I can actually describe a setting rather than just painting a person's portrait. Although portrait work is really where my heart is, that's what I like to paint the most. I just love painting people's faces. And I would like to put people in a scene and make it cohesive and have it tell a story without looking contrived and kind of silly. But who knows? I mean, you just never know. My other gallery has me painting historical Wild West figures. So they want me to paint Calamity Jane. I don't want to paint her because she was really ugly. And she was a prostitute. So it's like there's two things going against her. But I've been really trying to figure out how am I going to do this, paint this historical figure. I'm going to have to romanticize it a little bit more. I have to pretty her up a little bit more. She's really harsh. She's been kind of weathered looking. She's not somebody I want to sit and paint. Not even someone I really want to look at for that amount of time. I'm pretty shallow. I like to paint pretty people. Or cool looking people. That's okay too. But this is kind of coarse woman that's been left outside in the elements too long. Not really my first pick. So is that like what draws me? Do I think I'm going to do that forever? Probably not. But for now, it's kind of fun. I picked Annie Oakley first because she's so cool and cool looking subject matter. That'd be fun. You want me to paint Wild Bill? That sounds fun. Yeah, I can do that. But I don't know. I mean, I hope I get to still be doing good narrative work as time goes on. I feel like that's an area that's just so open-ended. There's just so much growth that I could get in that area that I'll never get to the end of it. So, I mean, it's just endless learning. I mean, I just want to always be learning and growing as I go. You know, sometimes I just want to sit down and paint a still life, but then there's times when I feel like, man, I really want to paint this scene. Like, I want to do a beadworking scene. That's my next thing. I'm going out next month. I'm going to do my big photo shoot in Jackson Hole in Montana, and hopefully get some good subject matter to paint. I'm really excited about it, but it's one of those things very, very nerve-wracking. You just don't know what you're going to get. Before, when I did colonial subject matter, I was in control of things. I could say, oh, there's a good model there, I'm going to see if she'll pose for me, I'll make her an outfit, and we'll do a photo shoot. Boom, boom, boom. Pretty easy. But now I'm dealing with being an outsider in a world that has culturally exploited, the whites have exploited the Native American culture. So, it's very difficult to feel comfortable doing it. I just want to do it right. Who knows? I hope I'm just getting better. That's all I care about. I hope to paint till, I'm dead at my easel. It's like my goal in life.
So on the subject of getting better, you mentioned that you enjoy portrait painting, you enjoy still life painting. Are there any disciplines that you regularly practice that you find incredibly important that you don't enjoy but you do for the sake of keeping your skills up?
Well, that's an easy answer. It would be plein air. I hate plein air painting. I suck at it. And I go painting with somebody who's awesome at it, and it just makes me look even worse. It's just like, man, I just want to hit myself with a brick when I'm done because it's just so bad. And I only do it because, number one, my friend who likes plein air painting, he asks me to go a lot, and he wants to go, and I feel like, well, I should be a good friend and go do this thing that's humiliating. But also because I know it's a good thing to do. It's good to do things that you aren't as good at. If I only got to do the things I was good at, well, I'd be pretty limited. And honestly, when I first got married and decided, okay, I'm going to do this gallery thing, and I told Eric, I'm only going to paint still lifes. That's what I'm going to do for a living. And he said, you better get your figurative and portrait skills up, because you might want to do that. I was like, I never want to do that, so don't bug me about it. I just want to paint still life. And then I don't know what happened. A couple of years down the road, I was like, man, I really want to do some portrait work. I want to paint figuratives. And he was like, see, I told you so. So you just don't know. I mean, generally you like the things that you're good at, and you don't like doing things you're not good at. Do I ever think by plein air painting I'm going to be good at plein air painting? No, I already know I'm not. Life is too short, and that's just not in my cards. And I just don't. I don't know. I just don't have a need for it. But I have to put people in an outdoor scene all the time, and it's always the hardest part of the painting. Like, I'd rather just paint the people. I don't want to put them outside in the scene. It just sucks every time. And that's because I need to get better at plein air painting to see how the light influences the subject and how the colors look and how the atmospheric perspective works, or how to change things. Especially being literal, you can't be. You have to really change things a lot more than what you see. And plein air is excellent for that. But, you know, I guess it's good to go with somebody that's really good. Because then you can look at them and see what they're doing. But man, it sure is humiliating. Every time I think I'm doing okay, I look over and I'm like, oh my God, that's like the greatest thing he's ever done. I hate you.
For those of our viewers who don't know, your plein air painting partner is another teacher at the atelier.
Ben.
Ben Young.
He was awesome. He's a really good plein air painter. I mean, I'm not exaggerating. He's just really good. I was like, I'm just going to take out a still life and paint that outside. That's about the only chance I have of doing good plein air painting. But again, doing art is not about just emphasizing the things you're good at. You're not going to get good at something unless you focus on your weak spots. So, fortunately, that's just part of it. It's not fun. Nobody likes to suck at something. But the more you do it, you suck a little bit less each time. That's how you get better. There have been so many times when I just don't want to do it, and then something good comes out of it because I force myself to finish it even though I didn't want to. I've literally thrown paintings in the trash and then taken them back out again and finished them. And more, it's just, at this point now, it's just to do it for the practice of doing it, to not give up on something. You know, now if I finish a painting and it's just not good enough to send to the gallery, I still try to finish it because I have to do the act of it. It gets too easy to just step things aside, throw them aside, and not ever look at them again. And that's a problem.
A little bit.
What's up, Matt Smith?
Nothing.
Nothing. What have you been doing? Huh?
You're not going to take a break?
No.
No, that was a trooper net. She's painted through the entire live stream.
Made this recording.
Oh yeah.
Twice.
Breaks are for wimps. Come on now.
We're live, man.
I'm no sissy. My left butt cheek is gone numb. And I'm just kind of moving it now just to keep it alive. I'm sure I pinched a nerve somewhere. I don't know. So I just get like in that mindset.
I had a be back in 5-minute break sign ready and everything. It's right here next to it.
I asked Eric, I'm like, what are you doing about breaks in there if you don't have a model? Oh, after these messages, we will be right back. Yeah, I don't know. What can I say?
I'm sure everyone watching appreciates.
They're probably like, man, I gotta go eat dinner or something. I don't know. Painting for me is like the only real thing in my life that has taken my focus and grounded me. I was always just all over the place. And it's just kind of a mystery to me how it just sucks you in and just takes you to a different world where it's like time isn't really a factor. It transports you.
Why don't you paint something really pink?
Wait, paint something pink?
Yeah.
Why?
Like you used to.
Oh, well, I went through a pink and green phase for a while. I don't know, I haven't really gone through any phases lately, like color-wise.
You don't go through a blue period?
Well, I went through like a painting kind of cold light painting, and I hated it. So I was like, oh, I'm glad I'm not doing that anymore.
That blue pinkish fabric up there, that's from your pink period, isn't it?
Oh.
That whole costume you made with the big pink bows?
Oh yeah. That was like hot pink. And then later I find out they didn't even have that color back in the day. So it's so historically inaccurate, but I didn't care. It didn't invent aniline dyes till like 1870, so I was a little bit off on that, but you know, that's all right. I've done the best job I can with researching things, but yeah, I don't know.
So how much time on average do you spend researching costumes before you go in and start painting and or start working out a piece, start drawing it and getting the ideas ready for it?
Quite a lot of time. Not as much now because I'm hiring somebody to provide the historical costumes. But up until this point, I did quite a bit of research. I mean, like down to like a nauseating degree of it. And then my gallery was like, my collectors don't even care. They just want something with a red color here and some green over there. And if you put this in there and you put that on there, then they'll buy it. And I'm like, really? I'm like spending all this time working on this thing, and then it's like that's all they want is like to match the sofa, and it's kind of like, well, yeah, kind of. Oh, okay, well. So when I say I paint something for myself, it's usually because I'll pick something that is off of the subject matter. Like initially, my gallery said, send me paintings of masculine Indians doing this and this and that and this war stuff and some guys on horseback. So I was like, all right. So I sent them that. But then I would send them these pretty girls because that's what I wanted to paint, with pretty girls and little kids and stuff. Well, all the pretty girls and little kids sold. All the masculine stuff just sat around. And then he's like, send me pretty girls and, you know, children. I was like, okay. Well, 3 weeks ago you wanted this other thing. So, who knows? It's like, I think in the end, it's like if your heart's really into something, it kind of shows in the painting. But if you're really excited about painting something, I think it definitely, it shows up more than if you're just going, I'm just doing this because they want me to. I have had to do paintings of the same subject before, because they'll say, oh, the client really wanted that and it sold before they were able to come and get it. Can you send me another one just like it? It's like the worst thing ever. And I shouldn't complain because, hey, that's a sale, you know, that's wonderful. That's just awesome. But it's like your heart's just not in it the second time. I already did that painting. I don't want to paint that again. And you start second guessing yourself and go, I've done like maybe 3 or 4 repaints. I always tell them, I'm not going to do the exact same thing. I'll do something slightly different. It's important to have a good relationship with your gallery. You know, a lot of people say, do you even need a gallery now? I mean, people could just sell their work on the internet. And I guess I'm kind of old-fashioned. I like the idea that they're the ones connecting with their specific client, and that I'm kind of behind the scenes, you know, like in The Wizard of Oz, you know. But I just like it. It's, I don't know. weird. More of a mystery, I guess, whoever buys it. I like to not know. I don't know why. I guess part of it is I always think they're going to buy it and go, I hate this painting. And I'm stuck with it. I paid a lot of money and it's hanging on my wall and it sucks. I don't want to think about that. I just want to think that some mystery person bought it and they just think it's the greatest thing ever.
Margaret O'Brien wants you to know that this has been super, and thank you for taking the time to paint live.
Well, thank you. You're welcome. I apologize for not finishing it, but this is just the
Now, you
beginning.
mentioned that you're planning on taking this back home and polishing this piece up,
Yeah,
finishing it off.
yes I am.
Actually, we could do a blog feature on it when you're
Of
finished with
course.
it.
Yeah.
Awesome. So look forward to that, everybody. We'll be posting the finished painting on our blog at wattsatelier.com. So you can check it out there once Meadow finishes this piece up.
Yeah, you'll be able to see what I would consider a more finished version of. This is like a lay-in. Unlike Jeff, I can't do a painting in 2 hours that looks good. I could do a painting in 2 hours, but it sucks. But Jeff is amazing. He's so fun to watch that when you watch other people demo, it's kind of like, I'm not impressed. He did that finished painting in an hour and a half. But I have become a studio painter, and I paint at a certain pace, and that's the pace I want to paint at. Yeah, there's a lot to be worked on. So when you're thinking about, oh, I'm going to taper off my painting, you have to kind of think about how you finish it so it's workable for the next session. And that's something I like to think about a lot. Sometimes I'll just leave a painting and then 2 days later I come back and go, oh, why did I leave that thick paint there? It's all gloppy. So when you get home from a class, if it's a painting you want to keep working on, you need to look at it and determine what areas are going to be further addressed and what areas will be left alone, or if you're going to scrub it or whatnot, or if you're capping your scrub it class. Yeah. But hey, you know, at least you're planning ahead and saving your stuff. There's so many paintings I go, why didn't I scrub that? That's such a nice canvas. Why did I keep that terrible painting? Or just terrible. And I don't know why. I just really think I'm tired, you know. Or like that's like the same thing when you get home and you didn't clean your brushes. And you're like, oh, jeez.
Justin H. asks, would you recommend reading Jack Ferragasso, Mastering the Human Figure, because he teaches the same as you guys do?
Why not? I recommend reading anything you can that you feel helps, but more than reading, you gotta do it visually. I probably am not a good person to ask that advice for, because I didn't really read very much about art unless it was more on the inspiration level. I tried to read Vanderpool, but honest to God, I couldn't get through it. So I found it much more valuable to do drawing studies from from the book. And that's what I did. I studied Vanderpool drawings. I learned so much more. When I'd sit down and try to read it, I would get lost and just completely lose my train of thought trying to figure out what he was talking about in Old English. So as much as you read something, I think it's probably even better to add that to using a book as a visual reference.
So we have another question here from Gist. Gist? Something along those lines. He asks, when are you coming home to your husband?
Wow.
Winky face emoticon.
Ask him how his run went and why he didn't come by the school like he said he was going to.
Zing.
Eric's in trouble.
Yeah. What's your answer to that? What did MGS say?
Silence.
Oh. Tell him I'll come home when he's got dinner ready for me. It better be good. I want 3 kinds of salad. I want pickled bean sprouts. I want a fruit salad. A regular large green salad. Marinated tomatoes. I'm placing my order right now. It better be happening. So like this flag is something I'll have to really work on a lot.
Eric says he didn't want to interrupt you with his sweatiness.
Oh, since when? Dude. As a matter of fact, he keeps a towel on his side of the couch just to bask in his sweatiness. I was like, that's pretty bad. We already have a couch cover, and then he's got the towel on top of the couch cover. He's pretty sweaty.
Marianne White says inspiring demo, Meadow, and thank you so much.
You're welcome. You are all too kind. It's almost time, huh?
It is almost time. We've got the last couple minutes here.
All right.
So we have a couple minutes left. If anybody has a last question they want to get in, feel free to ask it.
Don't be shy. What I'm doing here is I'm just softening that back because those are all areas I have to get in and render. Who's Googling over there?
Eric has typed TMI.
Too much information? About his sweatiness?
Couldn't be that.
He's not shy. something is a subject that's in the background, it can help to kind of scratch your brush through it a little bit. You don't want it to have as many crisp edges because it'll push it forward. So this is where you do more back and forth. It can be hard when you have something that has such a graphic image to keep it back there, which is why I like to work on the lettering carefully, because you can get in there and then all of a sudden the letters become the most front thing you see. They get very cut out. So they have to be put in and kind of scratched back.
So as we wrap this up in these last couple minutes here, are you going in with that bristle brush and kind of softening some edges for
Correct.
when you go back and work on it again?
Exactly. The things I have to kind of figure out is like, I move this block a little bit, it's not in the right place, so I'm going to have to work on that. So I want to make sure this area here is very flat. I want to be able to have some of that surface there for me. And same with this block here, just making sure it's nice and flat. I don't have any thick paint. And just very lightly smooth the paint on the bear's outfit, because for the most part I like the build up there. It's okay. I'm gonna have more paint on there anyway. But because his head is round, essentially, you know, the back edges of it need to soften in the background a little bit more. I don't want him to be completely carved out on all sides. So I just soften that. The same with the hat. I mean, it's got a hard edge here. I just kind of knock that back to get it to roll.
That timer signifies the end of our broadcast tonight.
All right.
So thank you for joining us all, and we look forward to seeing everyone again in 2 weeks for our next Friday Night Live.
Who's next?
That's a great question. I'm not sure yet. We'll have to
You,
look on
Tom?
it. I don't think it's me.
No?
I don't think so.
Why not?
I'm sure one of these nights, but I don't think next week.
It's going to be Bob Kosky.
Let's see. Yeah, tune into our website. We'll post who will be demoing in 2 weeks on our blog. So tune in then, and we'll see you guys next time.
You're welcome.
What's up? What are you doing?
Watching the live show.
That's cool. You made it.
Just got here an
I just
hour
read.
ago.